This evening. I believe all of us have had a good day, so we will get direct into our conversation, and the discussion will be around what we call inventory control in supply chain management. Of course, we will begin by understanding a few concepts around what we mean by inventory control. As we proceed also, we are going to see the reasons why we do inventory control. Now, when we talk about inventory control, it is all about how organizations are able to oversee the ordering stage and the use of various goods within the businesses and the farm. So there is need to do this overseeing because we are dealing with quite a number of inventories within our organizations. Therefore, it is very, very important for us to have the knowledge on inventory control so that we know how to manage our goods, we know how to manage our raw materials, and we know how to manage other items that we use within the company setup and various organizations. When we talk about inventory control, there are many other key issues that we discuss, and we ensure that we are doing within the aspects of inventory control. Of course, when we talk about inventory control, we are looking at maintaining the appropriate stock levels or the appropriate inventory levels. That is one of our key focuses of doing inventory control. We also want to make sure that we are avoiding what we call stockouts. Stockouts is situations where we run out of stock as organizations, or we run out of raw materials, or we run out of goods. So when we do proper inventory control, then we are able to avoid issues around what we are calling stockouts. Running out of raw materials, it could be running out of medication in the health sector. It could be running out of very important goods that are highly demanded by our clients. And also, we also do inventory control so that we can also control overstocking. Sometimes we could experience overstockings because probably our warehousing and storage facilities are limited in terms of space. So also we do not want to overpile things there, and therefore when we want access to these raw materials to the stock, then we are not able to do it appropriately. Also, under inventory control, we will also be doing it, or another reason as to why we do inventory control is to ensure that we have supplier reliability. Remember, the suppliers that we are relying upon as organizations, the only relationship we have with them is the supplier organizational relationship. And of course, they are delivering these goods and raw materials to many other organizations. But when we have a good inventory control program, then we are not going to miss out on the supplies when need be to have those supplies. And proper inventory control also is going to ensure that we ensure better warehousing and organization space. And also, once we are doing inventory control, we will be keen to make sure that we are taking care of our perishable goods. That will be critical for those organizations that are dealing with what we call perishable goods. Therefore, it is inventory control is very important within the supply chain. Of course, we will be looking at a number of examples. For example, we can ask ourselves, how do retail stores do inventory control? Some of them are using what we call a point of sales. This is a system that can be able to track inventory. As we continue to sell as a retail store, we have a POS system that can be able now to track real-time sales and keep notifying us on what is remaining, what are the items that we need to add within a particular period of time. In the health sector, we also have what we call radio frequency identification, and we also use what we call barcode tracking. I think some of us, maybe that were in our weekend lecture, we talked about barcode tracking and the importance of using tools like barcode readers. So using those tools, then we can be able to track, for example, expiration date of our medication. We can also ensure that we are following the laid down regulatory compliance procedures, and we can also ensure that we are having real-time visibility into the supply levels in the organization. And then also companies like McDonald's, they use what we call fast in, fast out. We are going to be seeing that as we proceed. Where whatever comes in fast within the organization, also it is fast to leave. We are going to see fast in, fast out as a method of inventory control. We are going to be seeing also what we call last in, last out, and many others as we proceed. So that is a background discussion of our conversation. Of course, we are beginning to look at the overview of inventory. Where did we come from in terms of inventory control? And we are saying many companies in Japan, in Europe, in North America have demonstrated remarkable success in manufacturing and distribution. And it is because they are able to do their inventory control activities right. And they are able to adopt those methods that are able to ensure that we do proper inventory control. We also have, for example, a method we call just-in-time method. So the ordering of goods using that method is as at when those raw materials or those items are needed. Very common in a country like Japan, the just-in-time method of inventory control. So we are not just discussing this conversation as at now. We are also looking at many other countries, how they have been able to do their inventory control activities. So we have different definitions of inventory control. Like what I've just said, it is all about managing and overseeing the ordering and storage of goods. We can also adopt this particular definition here by Elof and Carstens that talks about inventory control being a process of ensuring that products are available for customers when they need them. So we want to avoid what I've just called stockouts, and telling our clients and those people that rely on us to receive particular goods, avoiding challenges of telling them that we have run out of stock. So if we do proper inventory control, then such kind of issues are not going to arise within our organizations and our businesses. So once we are doing inventory control, then we make sure our activities around purchasing are appropriate. When do we do purchasing? Our activities around manufacturing as businesses, as organizations, our activities around distribution. Simply distribution, we define it or understand it as the process in which goods, items are able to move from a point of origin or a point of production to the client or to the customer. And then also when we are doing inventory control, we want to control activities around the marketing department. We are saying now the supplies that we focus on ensuring that have been done right. The supplies around current products, supplies around new items. Probably we have new items that we are receiving in the space. Consumables are items, for example, that we as human beings, citizens of countries consume. Spare parts, outdated products. In terms of supplies, we have very many kinds of supplies. Whatever we are listing here is just a few of them. So new items in the market, consumables, spare parts, outdated products, and necessary supplies. So the issue of supply chain management. Now, we cannot talk about inventory control and our supply chain activities are not right. So we want to look at supply chain in the context of it being a group of entities that are involved in upstream and downstream flows. So supply chain management is simply the movement of goods. When we are talking about upstream and downstream, it is from the source. What I've just said may be from the production place to the customers. And when we are doing supply chain, we need to get it right in terms of our finance. We need to get it right in terms of information. We need to get it right in terms of product and service. Now, when you are doing supply chain, of course, supply chain management will also involve us overseeing the flow of goods and services. Other activities that we need to get right when we are doing supply chain management is ensure that we do proper planning. So that means we sit down as organizations and strategize on how we are going to meet the customer's demands and the client's demands. So we cannot succeed in supply chain management activities and inventory control activities if we do not do proper planning. Proper planning means we can also be able to identify what we call fleet management. If we are dealing with a number of vehicles, to be able to ensure inventory management is successful, we are able to make it right. And then once we do planning, we are also aware of sourcing, identifying and selecting suppliers to provide raw materials and services. So sourcing, of course, is the process of trying to get now these raw materials, these products, from across different suppliers. So by doing so, we are able to identify who are our best suppliers as an entity. And we do what we call supplier selection. We do what we call supplier relationship management, where we create a relationship with these suppliers that at the point where we are going to need them and require their services, then they will be readily available and be willing to provide the supplies. And also, when we are doing supply chain management, it is important for us to ensure that we are getting it right in terms of inventory management. Very importantly, we will also now be looking at what we call reasons for keeping inventory. So why should we keep inventory? Why don't we wait as at when particular goods deplete or are out of stock that we order? We have a number of reasons. We have a number of reasons that organizations today have warehouses. And the purpose of those warehouses is as at when we receive goods, we can be able to store, and then we can access them as at when we need them. So part of the reasons of keeping inventory, number one, is because of issues around time. Remember, time is very, very important. there are those clients that do not want to be told that to wait. They do not want to be told to wait. Come tomorrow. For them, that is not being very good in terms of how you are planning your inventory and supply chain activities. Now, time also in the context that we have goods that when we order, they take quite some time before we receive them. Yeah. So once we have organized our inventory activities, our supply chain management activities, then those items that take quite a while before they get to the place that they have been ordered, then we can be able to do it in advance. That is what we call lead time. And lead time is very, very critical in matters inventory management. When we talk about lead times, they are the times between when an order is placed and between when we receive those orders. So if we are ordering today on Tuesday and we are receiving it on Saturday, those waiting days there are the ones that we call in supply chain language and inventory language as lead times. So you need to know your suppliers. You need to know that supplier A delivers goods on time. Supplier B takes like a week. Supplier C also is sourcing from an external space, and they take maybe a month. When you go to e-commerce platforms, we find that there are those items that you order, and the system automatically gives you a duration of how many days it is going to take. Those are the days we refer to as lead times. So reasons of keeping inventory in terms of time, there are many versions on how we can discuss time. We also want to save on time. We do not want to lose a lot of time waiting. We also want to avoid any form of delays that might arise because of other external factors. It could be the political external factors, the political environment. Probably we have political issues that have arose that has affected the transportation of goods from point A to B. And therefore, some of those things, of course, we do not have control over them. But to be able to safeguard ourselves and be on the right side, then we do what I've just said in terms of planning. And we are able to beat the aspects of time. Another reason as to why we keep inventory is because of issues around uncertainty. Uncertainty are what we refer to as unexpected occurrences within the supply chain space. Look at, for example, what happened during COVID-19. Very few people were expecting that kind of a pandemic to affect the world. But many activities stopped. Air travel stopped. Part of the road travel stopped. People began to put what we call lockdowns. And therefore, that is an example of an uncertainty that would make us now keep inventory in a certain number. So that as at when or during that period where we are going to have uncertainties, then business is still going to continue. Yeah. We have uncertainties around demand. Sometimes we can receive excessive demand. And we have uncertainties around supply and predictability. We are not sure about what is going to happen around the transportation sector. So it is very, very important as matters supply chain to know that you may not foresee or tell about the future. Therefore, it is important for you to do proper inventory management and inventory control. We have said when we do proper control, we are going to avoid what we call stockouts. And therefore, at no point are we going to find ourselves having a challenge in terms of lack of inventory. Another reason for keeping inventory is what we refer to as economies of scale. Now, economies of scale, we simply define it, or we discuss it as the benefits that businesses enjoy simply because of the virtue of them being large, or by the virtue of them buying their inventory in large numbers. Yeah. So those kind of benefits include, for example, discounts. You can be given discounts. You can also receive transportation from your supplier simply because you are buying in larger quantities. This kind of a reason or benefit is enjoyed only by those institutions that are big, because for them, they are not going for a single item, they are not going for 2 items, they are going for items in hundreds and in thousands. So it becomes easier to buy, to move, to store in larger quantities, and you are able to reduce various kinds of costs. So remember that at economies of scale, in layman's language, in simple language, are the benefits that organizations enjoy by the virtue of them being large. And we have given examples of discounts and also the availability of transportation. As we wind up on the reasons for keeping inventory, we have other issues that we can discuss there. Of course, we can also talk about if we are doing inventory activities right, then the image of the organization also becomes better, and we are able to maintain a good image. We are able to move to a place where the name of the company is also safeguarded because of matters to do with inventory. So let us ensure that we do proper keeping of inventory, because the name of the business is also at stake. The name of the company is also at stake. If we have misplacement of items, if we have loss of items, if we have inaccessibility of items, all those are issues that are able to put us in trouble, and our image is affected. Excuse me. We have noted a number of points that you need to remember: the point on time, the point on uncertainty, the point on economies of scale, and also the point that I've just mentioned in terms of safeguarding the image of the organization when it comes to matters to do with proper inventory management. Now, we have a number of activities and procedures that are involved when we are doing inventory control. Activity number 1 is what we refer to as receiving, storing, and transferring of goods. We could be having suppliers that are availing these goods to us. So it is at that point where we do the receiving aspect. Then we introduce the storing aspect. That is what we refer to as warehousing, ensuring that we properly keep them, ensuring that in terms of how we store, it is a safe environment. It is an environment that, again, we are not going to be having a lot of challenges that the goods and items maybe have perished, or those that are perishable because of poor storage. So when we talk about warehousing, then we bring in the context of the factors to consider when now we are choosing a warehousing facility. Of course, we have the main ones, for example, the space. How big is the warehouse, or how big is the place where we intend to store our goods? We also consider issues to do with cost. How much is the cost if it is not organizational owned? We also need to have trained personnel that know how to manage these warehouses. We also, very importantly, need to be doing proper storage. So we need qualified personnel who know how to use various warehousing facilities. Those are areas that you can also be able to do research on, to be able to understand more on those considerations in the choice of warehousing facilities. The management of warehouses also, or storing facilities, it is critical that we have trained personnel to enable us to do it right. And of course, very, very important is on the issue of security. So security is key. Security is very, very important. How can we safeguard the items that we have? Of course, organizations are adopting technology, like, for example, the use of CCTV cameras in the warehouses to just see what is happening within the storage facilities. Other activities, of course, involve placing items in strategic locations. That now will depend on when we want to assess these items or when we want to access them. So we have them located in strategic locations. Another activity is our ability to be able to track inventory and their location. I've given an example of a POS system, or a point of sale. That is a very good system in terms of tracking inventory. You don't need to go and do physical counting, simply because the moment at which the inventory came into the organization, everything was recorded. Now we are releasing them. They have barcode readers, for example. We can scan. And once we scan and we release that item, then we can be able to, at the end of the day, keep track on what is happening. Other very, very important activities is documenting product details and history. So record keeping is very, very major in terms of inventory control. Proper records will assist us to get it right. So we also need to have personnel who can be able to do proper record keeping, proper documentation. And finally, on the final activities is monitoring the conditions of items in stock. So we keep checking. So we are aware of the expiry date of these items. We have products that are affected by issues of temperatures. So we need to keep monitoring the condition. Remember, at the time maybe we had COVID-19, it was a requirement that some of those vaccines had to be stored in refrigerators because of temperature-related issues. So as we continue to do our inventory, we also need to understand the nature of goods that we are dealing with. And once we understand the nature, then we are able to monitor their conditions on a daily basis. Inventory control versus inventory management. We want to understand the differences between these two. So what happens in inventory control in terms of scope? We have existing inventory in the warehouse, whereas on the opposite side, what we are calling inventory management, raw materials and finished goods during the entire production life cycle. So we are, in terms of inventory management, we are looking at managing of the entire production cycle. So we need to be aware that this chain or this cycle could be a big one, and we need to know every step of the way that we are getting it right. We are getting it right in terms of storage. We are getting it right in terms of transportation. Now, we also ask ourselves, what is the goal of inventory control? It is simply to ensure stocks in the warehouse are enough and in good condition. That is what I said in the introduction bit, where I was saying part of the key purposes of inventory control is to be able to avoid what I call stockouts. So you can see the main goal of inventory control is to be able to ensure we have stock as an organization, also ensure that the stock is in good condition. That is what we have also said in our previous slide there, where we were emphasizing on the need to do monitoring and controlling. And then also having the right inventory in the right place at the right time and with sufficient quantities. That is the goal of inventory management. So it brings in the aspect of, yes, we have the inventory. Is it in the right place? That's why I've just mentioned the considerations when we are making a decision of our warehouse. Has it come in the right time? And do we have it in sufficient or insufficiency? When you are doing inventory control, of course, our areas of concern is what items are in the inventory. There's a slide we were just talking about consumables. Those are examples of those items. What items are located in the warehouse? So there are those that are in the warehouse, there are those that we have stored. And also the condition. The aspect of the condition is really being emphasized here. In terms of inventory management, our key focus is which items should you order. So now that takes us to specifications of these items. For example, if we want to order computers, for instance, we could be able to look at the specifications in terms of the storage space. We could look at specifications in terms of portability. We could also look at specific specifications, also in terms of cost, and also the number of how many that we need. It is important as we do inventory control also to understand the types of inventory control systems. So we have what we call periodic systems. We have what we call perpetual inventory systems. Now, in periodic inventory control systems, then we do what we call conducting regular intervals, inventory counts. So we can do this, for example, we can do physical counts. You can see it is part of what is captured there. But of course, if we are dealing with items in plenty, of course, we may not do physical counts. But for those items where we are able to do physical count, as part of periodic inventory control, it is good to do the confirmations. Maybe on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, on a yearly basis. Yeah. How do we arrive at how many counts we are going to do? It will depend on the organization. It will depend on the specific needs of the organization and what kind of operations we are doing as an organization. Of course, that is specifically very important for organizations that are dealing with goods. It is only goods that we can do physical counts. And therefore, we need to be understanding before we choose whether it is periodic, we need to understand our nature of goods. What kind of goods are we dealing with as an organization? And then we have what we call perpetual inventory. And this one, it offers real-time tracking of inventory levels and the use of technologies. Yeah, these technologies are going to assist us to be able to track. Remember, I've just mentioned, for example, what I've just called the POS system. It will enable us to track without having the need to do the manual work of physically counting. RFID is what I just mentioned. It is a form of technology, a barcode technology. That means that we do, or it is called radio frequency identification. And you have said through this technology, we can capture essential information like even the expiry of the items. We can ensure real-time visibility of supply levels. So it is very, very important. So the emphasis around the perpetual inventory control system is that we are now introducing technology into our counting. Remember, of course, from the previous one, if somebody asks you what are the challenges of this periodic inventory control system, where we are emphasizing on the manual counting, because it is time consuming, it wastes a lot of time to be able to use that method. But with technology, we can have those, we can have, for example, these ones, barcodes and RFID technologies. Barcodes are similar to what are represented in this diagram here. We have the technology that supports the reading of these codes, what we call a barcode reading system. So you will find that this barcode here, or these numbers, represent a particular price of an item. And therefore, it is easier to track the item. It is very easy to be able to know the price of the item. Inventory control techniques, we have quite a number of them. The choice of, we are going to see that will be dependent with the organization. So we have what we call ABC analysis. We have what we call LIFO and FIFO. I mentioned about LIFO and FIFO. We are going to be seeing them, and then batch tracking, and also the safety stock. So these are some of the techniques that we can be able to adopt. Now, what do you mean by using the ABC analysis method? This is a very simple method. So we classify our stock according to classes. So ABC in the context that we can have goods that are classified under the A class. So we have under the A class, of course, we are looking at high value goods, premium items that have very strict control, and they are usually limited in stock. And then the B class, we can have in that particular bin or that particular class, where those commodities and raw materials and stock and products will be those that are moderately priced, will be mid-priority items. And finally, is the C class, where we have low cost, where we have low priority items, where we have high sales volume. Now, this particular method, of course, is important, and in terms of benefits, because once we classify this stock in terms of these classes, then it helps also us to identify and classify our customers by doing what we call segmentation, market segmentation. So we can also classify our customers in terms of that if customer X or John comes around, he is a high value client, and therefore he is looking for items that have been classified in the A class. So ABC analysis, besides it being a method of inventory control, it's going to assist the organization to know which customer consumes which items on which particular class. So the C class, you will find those items are of low cost. Those items are also, we also do a lot of high sales volume around them. And so for those ones, the organization can keep huge inventories for them, because the demand for the C class will also be very high. Just a minute. Then we have the other inventory control management system is what we refer to as LIFO. So these are abbreviations. For example, for LIFO is what we call last in, first out. Last in, first out. That is to mean, in terms of the inventory that we have received, that inventory that came last into the warehouse is the one that is first to leave. That is what we mean by last in, first out. And another method that we can adopt is what we call the first in, the first out. So whatever came first into the warehouse will be first to leave. Of course, now that's where the issue of the spacing of your warehouse comes in, because probably that tells you now, for us to be able to use these methods, then we also need to learn on how to do our arrangement of the warehouse. Because if it is first in, first out, then it means, how do we begin to arrange? We begin to arrange those items from maybe at the entrance point, because it is first in, first out. That at the point where we will need them out, or when we will need to distribute them or to release them from the warehouse, then we are not struggling to go to the far end to look for those items. So once an organization chooses either of these methods, then the arrangement of their warehouse is especially very, very important and critical. Then we have batch tracking. You have seen items that have what we call batch numbers. So we can use those numbers to be able to identify the source of the item, the intended destination. Of course, if it is medication like what is represented in this diagram here, we want also to identify the potential expiry date, so that we may not be issuing items that are already expired. Then we have also what we refer to as safety stock. So this will entail us as organizations keeping extra inventory or extra stock. It's like having a stock at hand, And the reason why organizations do this is, for example, in instances where we have market fluctuations, price fluctuations, and then it becomes difficult for you to buy with the new prices. Or sometimes because of issues around inflation, which is a persistent increase of goods and services, you will find the prices have really gone up. And this could be contributed by factors like taxation. It could be contributed by factors around new government policies that have been put in place in terms of quality, in terms of quantity. And therefore, the aspect of having a safety stock is a good one. If, as an organization, we are able to do it, then we can have that extra inventory. That is something that organizations are doing. Of course, there are those that are doing it on the business angle, that at particular seasons, prices of items are cheap. For example, when we have farmers having huge harvests, you realize the cost of produce at that time is very cheap because the produce is in plenty. So we can take advantage of that. Now, depending with the items that we are using in the organizations, to be able to have what we call a safety stock. So how do we prepare ourselves on matters inventory control? It is important that we begin with an inventory control plan. Remember, as I was laying a background of where we were heading, I emphasized on the need to get planning right. Even when we discuss planning at management level, we usually say that it is the basis of all other functions of management. So if we don't get it right, we are going to definitely find ourselves in trouble. So we need to plan. We also need to put into practice the plan. It is not just a mere documentation. You can see the image on my right, or is somebody holding a pen and a paper. It is not just any other documentation. We need to put it into practice on the things that we want to do. In terms of our plans, we can lay out a good strategy in terms of documentation, in terms of proper record keeping to ensure that we get it right. And then also we maintain consistency in terms of labeling products. Remember, if we do improper labeling, then at the point where we are doing our first in, first out, or last in, first out, we could also mess and send the wrong package to the wrong client. So proper labeling, proper packaging for those items that are subject to breakage. How do we store them? Those are critical issues that are going to assist us to get our inventory control right. So establish reorder points, or what we call reorder levels. So those are the levels at which organizations will be required maybe to make a fresh order. As at what point? When you're talking about establish reorder points, we want to know as at what point do we make fresh orders. And we can always keep critical items in stock. We have every organization as what they would describe as their critical items. In the medical sector, in the health sector, what are those that would be referred as critical items? Probably a specific drug that is usually highly sought. We make sure that they are readily available. And then it is also important to be able to review our product shipments. The reason why we are reviewing is we want to confirm, have we been able to put the right product in place in terms of quantity, in terms of the labeling. Is it the right one? Is it headed to the right destination? I'm sure in most of transport modes of transport, air transport, road transport, we must have had conversations of misplacement of goods, loss of goods. It is because when we are highlighting most of these key points, there's a place we experience some mishap, and then the goods or items end up going to the wrong destination. And very, very importantly, as the last bit, is perform warehousing audits regularly. Yeah? So auditing is about the continuous checking of our warehousing activities. Remember, I talked about the aspects that we need to put in place when we are establishing a warehouse. Issues to do with safety, security of our goods. If we are not getting that right, then now we need to do audits even more regularly. We have had instances where, for example, employees are living with critical items from the warehouse, and the organization is unable to know because they have not put security measures in place. So audits will now put us to a space where we can continually keep track on what is happening in the warehouses. We have, as we wind up, the technologies that we can be able to use in inventory control, warehousing management. We have a warehouse management system. We can adopt that as one of the technologies. How does warehousing management system work? It brings in the aspect of the warehouse design, the ability to track inventory, when we are doing receiving, when we are doing shipping, our ability for us as we are managing our warehouse also to be able to do proper reporting. So this is part of very, very critical technologies that we can consider. WMS system. Of course, I said for retail shops, they use what we call a POS system. And as we move, and in terms of emerging technologies, these systems are going to be there. You can also see this system can also do what we call yard and dock management. So if we are using water transport at the point where the ship docks, we have a system that can be able to even keep track of everything that is being offloaded into our warehouses. So we are moving from the manual point of doing things and getting into technology to assist us to be able to get it right. And then we can also adopt a barcode system. We have what we call barcode readers. Very interesting image here in terms of barcode reading. It is going to assist us also to manage our warehouses. Everything coming in, it could be recorded by the system. As it goes out, probably we are selling, we also scan those numbers. And the system automatically is able to tell you what is remaining, what do we need to add, and so on and so forth. And finally, and most interesting also, organizations are adopting robotics technology. So these are advanced technologies. Very interesting image also on our right. Of course, this kind of technology also comes with its own consequences. We could have individuals losing their jobs. So it is about the organizations analyzing the cost, the efficiency of using robotics technology. We can also be able to question ourselves whether it is able to sort all tasks within the warehouse. Yeah, so this is a conversation that businesses, organizations are having now in terms of the management of warehouses. Quite a discussion that we have just had there.